Hello, and welcome to the Integrative Health Convention 2018 online interviews. Today, we're going to find out more about homeopathy and Ellen Kramer, who is speaking at the convention this October. The Integrative Health Convention is an annual convention in London featuring many leaders in their fields of complementary and conventional medicine, medical therapies to help people get better through their various healing practices. It's an opportunity for doctors and therapists to meet, share, learn from and connect with each other. We believe that true health is holistic and that people get better in more than just one way, and that we all have so much to learn from each other. And the Integrative Health Convention provides a stage for therapists, doctors, and the public. There are limited tickets which can be purchased at integrativehealthconvention.co.uk. This series of online interviews will help you get to know our speakers who are leaders in different fields of healing or therapy or medicine. And maybe you can decide which talk to attend out of the 36 talks to choose from over the 2 days at Integrative Health Convention 2018. I'm your host, Dr. Naveed Akhtar. I've been a GP in London for over 9 years, and I'm the co-founder of Neurolinguistic Healthcare, the organisers of the Integrative Health Convention 2018. Neurolinguistic Healthcare provides courses in advanced communication skills and therapeutic techniques, as well as training for hypnosis for healthcare providers. Today, I'm speaking to one of our excellent speakers who's coming to the 2018 Integrative Health Convention at the Park Plaza Victoria Hotel in London to share with you what they know and to tell us a little bit about who they are and what they do and what to expect from their talk at the convention. So I'd like to introduce you to Ellen Kramer, who is the course director at the College of Practical Homeopathy. They run courses and postgraduate training in homeopathy and can be found at the College of Practical Homeopathy.com, based in London. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you for inviting me to your interviews.
Thank you very much for being here. So should we start by letting our audience know a little bit about yourself and anything that I might not have covered?
Okay, my name's Ellen Kramer, and I run the College of Practical Homeopathy, which is an online training. We do postgraduate and undergraduate training. You can start this course anywhere in the world. If you're in the UK, you can always come to our student clinic. This is of particular interest. Our postgraduate training is of particular interest to other practitioners because they can add it as a tool to what they're already doing. And I'll talk a little bit about, a little bit more about this because this is going to be integrated in my talk about using different forms of medicine as part of your toolbox.
Excellent. So let's go a little bit more into kind of your field. What exactly does your field of therapy involve?
Well, I'm essentially a homeopath, and we use diluted. Basically, anything can be go through the process of serial dilution and made into a remedy. But where we differ from conventional medicine and other therapies is that we come from a place that like cures like. So, for instance, when you're looking at hay fever, which is high levels of histamine, what we would do as a homeopath is give you something that would, in fact, increase your histamine levels a little bit more. And how the body responds to that is by reducing its histamine levels. So we actually take the communication of the body, we inform it to do slightly more than what it's doing, and the response is in the opposite direction. It begins to reduce its histamine response to pollens and etc. So basically, it's like cures like. It's counterthink. But when I think about all the research that's being done on obesity and being overweight, now they're beginning to understand that healthy fats reduce weight. So the more fats you eat, the more healthy fats you eat, the thinner you'll get, and that is actually very homeopathic. Whereas if you're overweight and tell the body, you know, reduce fats in your diet, guess what? The body starts to increase its fat storage. So homeopathy is very counter thinking, but it works.
That's really interesting, because when you talk about hay fever and antihistamine, increasing the histamine load, conventional Western medicine is to give an
Yeah.
antihistamine, which reduces
Yeah,
that.
but we do the opposite. We give something that increases histamine, and then it's the body that begins to reduce it, because the body thinks, my God, I've got too much, you know, there's too much histamine now, I need to reduce it. So we look at the things that increase your histamine levels. But the other thing about homeopathy is that the remedies will only work within the context as to why the body's doing that symptom. So we may have a lot of remedies for hay fever, but you've actually got to find the remedy that is in the right context to why the patient is doing hay fever. So there's always a cause as to why the body's doing the symptoms it's doing. And that's what we work with. We find the remedy that actually addresses the cause. So a patient might come to me about hay fever that starts after a grief. Another one may come to me, their hay fever started after they gave birth to their, to their child. Another one may come to me about hay fever after they went on to a particular medication. All of these hay fever cases would need to be looked at, and remedies would be found that incorporate why they're doing hay fever in the first place.
So your approach is truly a holistic approach, where you're not just treating the symptom, you're looking at the bigger picture and the person as a whole, to see what may have triggered this problem off in the
Yes.
first place.
And this is really important, because the body, we come from the place as the body is an intelligent healer. It knows what it needs to do to heal itself. And homeopathy, well, the late Robert Davidson, who taught me homeopathy, always used to say that homeopathy is an advanced communication pill. So it communicates with the body on a subtle level to begin healing. And that's why it's truly holistic, because when you take a case, you have to understand how the patient came to sit in front of you. And secondly, that the symptoms are the communication. It's telling you that something is out of balance. And as a good practitioner, you need to find out the underlying cause of it.
Absolutely. I'm curious always to know how people got into their field, or into that particular area of healing. Can you tell me what got you interested in homeopathy, and the story kind of behind of how you got to where you are today?
Okay, well, I got into homeopathy by accident, and it started with my third pregnancy. With all my previous pregnancies, I vomited from the day I got pregnant. With all my previous pregnancies, I vomited from the day I got pregnant, right the way through to giving birth. I was vomiting. I had nausea and vomiting. And our neighbor, who was living in the flat above us, was studying homeopathy. So I was pregnant with my third child, and he said to me, "Have you thought of trying homeopathy?" I'd never heard of it, never. And it seemed to me at that time, which is now over 30 years, that it was this sort of secret thing that people in the know knew about. So I then had to find a homeopath, and I went to see her. She took down all my symptoms. She gave me phosphorus, a homeopathic remedy, and it was like a miracle. So the homeopathy just, helped me with my nausea and vomiting, and I didn't have a problem. And then when my daughter was born, all her cousins had problems with ear infections, and they had grommets in their ears. And my daughter started to suffer from ear infections. So I then thought, you know what, this worked for me in pregnancy. Let me take her to see a homeopath. She had a very, very bad ear infection, and there was an acute clinic going on in Stoke Newington. So I took her to the acute clinic, and this lady, the homeopath, looked in this big book. She scrabbled around in a drawer. She came out, she got a remedy, she popped it in my daughter's mouth. And my daughter was screaming and crying and pulling her ears. And my daughter literally closed her eyes and fell asleep. She gave me more remedies. I went home and I just thought this was a miracle. It did what Calpol did not do. It was amazing. And then, of course, I started to look at the family health and my own health. And I suffered from, chronic hay fever to the point that antihistamines were no longer working for me. I was taking so much Piriton that, I was in a daze. And I thought to myself, I should try the homeopathy on this. And I remember getting off at Bond Street, going to Ainsworth, speaking to somebody there and getting a remedy. And the remedy was Arunda, which is one of the grasses. And I started taking this remedy, and I bought a little book, a little Boraki, and it worked. I found that it worked, and I was so amazed. And then I was hooked. I was hooked on homeopathy. At the time, I was doing hair and makeup, and so I carried a kit of homeopathic remedies. I had my Boraki, and whenever anybody was ill on set, they'd come to me, and I'd give them a remedy, and it worked. And I just thought, after a while, I said to my husband, you know what? I've got this hay fever, and I know that I can cure it, and I've got asthma as well. I know that I can do it, but I think I need to do a course. And I did my course and my training. I met Robert, and it felt like I'd come home when I met him. And I studied at the College of Practical Homeopathy, which I took over from him in 2003. But when I went to study homeopathy, to me, it was like I'd come home. And I'm dyslexic, but I found that I could actually speak names. It was like it wasn't new to me. And people were saying, oh, this is really difficult. This is da 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 da. And I'd say to them, do you know what? This is really easy. I don't know why it comes to me. And that is how I got into homeopathy. It started off with my family, home prescribing. And what was interesting was that it was safe. It was totally safe. If I got the wrong remedy, it didn't matter because the body wouldn't respond to it. And I remember thinking, when I got into homeopathy for my friends and family, everybody should know about this system of med. I just didn't understand why the world wasn't using it. So that was how my passion was fueled. And it's exactly the same today. I realized that my mission is to teach as many people how to use a very safe system of medicine to help their friends, their family, themselves, and also for practitioners to add it to what they're already doing. They will see it's a really good add-on to whatever therapy you're doing, even a neuro-linguistic medicine it would be good for. You would find that there's remedies that deal with mental, emotional, traumas where people are stuck, etc., etc. So psychotherapists can add it to their, to what they do.
That's so interesting. A lot of the things that you've already talked about as a GP, we find difficult to treat in a lot of people, and we find that they're resistant to a lot of medication. It's so interesting to find something completely different that could potentially work for so many people. That's just to integrate that into normal medicine would be a real changer for a lot of people.
Do you know what's interesting? Because with my asthma, I remember going to the chest clinic and the doctor warning me, you've got to take these, your inhalers and da 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 da. And if you don't take them, you could have a massive asthma attack and you could die. And after about 3 years, all my symptoms were so much worse, and I was allergic to more and more things. And I didn't understand the connection between that, taking all the medication, the destruction of essential minerals and nutrients and bioflora that steroids have. And I remember my husband saying to me, listen, I can't see you getting better. You seem to be getting worse. You need to find something else. And at the time, I didn't really know anything about homeopathy. But all I knew was that at 27 years of age, if I felt the way I did at 27, I would not make it to 50 because I was pulling myself from pillar to post. I was exhausted. I was sneezing. I was wheezing. I had small kids to deal with. I was working. I just felt overwhelmed and miserable from my symptoms. And when I found homeopathy, this is why I think I'm so obsessed, because I say to people, it saved my life. The homeopath I went to see said to me, oh, it's going to take about 3 years to cure the asthma and the hay fever. And I looked at him and I thought to him, well, after 15 years of steroids, antihistamines, 3 years is nothing. I'm going to do this. I've got nothing to lose because of the way I was suffering. And it was the best investment I ever made.
That's so amazing. Now, at the Integrative Health Convention, you're going to be talking about what are your healing principles in October at the Park Plaza, Victoria. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the audience is going to gain from your seminar?
I think one of the things that people miss, because most of us have been brainwashed into what homeopaths call allopathy as a system of medicine, which forgets that the human body is a self-healing organism. Its symptoms are its communication. And learning to understand the healing principles. Now, homeopathy has a set of guidelines to help you as a homeopath see whether the body is getting better or getting worse. And we call that Hering's Law of Cure. And a lot of practitioners, use that as an observational tool. And, this says that a disease comes from within outward, or from above downwards, or in reverse order to the way the disease started. So these are the guiding principles that help a homeopath to observe whether their patient is getting better. So sometimes, I've had patients who have been doing treatment, but they get a symptom. And the first thing I ask, it seems strange. So the first thing that I ask from my patients is, have you ever experienced this before? Now, most people will tell me, oh yeah, I had this 20 years ago. And so for me, I'm on the right track. The body's going in reverse order to the way it started. So it's not a new symptom. It's just that the vitality of the patient and the health of the patient has increased, and the body is now going back to heal stuff that it wasn't able to heal 20 years ago because they suppressed it with antibiotics or they suppressed it emotionally, etc., etc. So in homeopathy, in practical homeopathy, we do a timeline. The timeline is the map in which you're going to watch the patient, if they continue to come to see you for a long time, unravel back to their core issue. Because healing in reverse order is how the body gets to its cure. It begins to go backwards. So the healing principles help people to observe their patients and find out whether their treatment is going in the right direction. So if I have somebody who comes to see me about asthma, and they originally started off as a baby with eczema, and as the lungs are getting better and the eczema reappears, which has happened to me many times before, patients immediately think that they're getting sicker because they got rid of the eczema, but in fact they never got rid of that eczema. They pushed the disease deeper. And from a homeopathic point of view, that's not where you want that to go. You want the eczema to go in reverse order to the way they got the eczema, or above downward, but you don't want it to go into a deeper organ like the lungs. You want to keep it on an organ of least importance. So the internal organs are very, very important. The skin will discharge and hold a lot of disease at bay. So when we're watching this happen, we know we're on the right track. And often if the eczema reappears, then you go back to what was the original cause of the eczema, and you're able to support the body to heal. So homeopathy is about supporting the body to do its healing.
Fantastic, fantastic. I mean, you've just in the few minutes we've been talking, you've really opened my eyes to what homeopathy is and how it works. And I'm sure the audience members, when they come to the convention, will really benefit from the seminar that you're going to have. You've answered this kind of already, but if you just hone it down, having thought about the Integrative Health Convention, where the audience is made up of doctors, therapists, and the public, where do you see your particular practice fitting in with kind of integrative health?
I feel that homeopathy fits in very well with integrative health, because as I trained as a homeopath, it is not the only tool that I use. I see the body as the healer. My homeopathy is, the remedies are an excellent tool. But when you're looking at 21st century patients, 21st century patients are highly toxic. On a cellular level, they're malnourished. They don't have resources to heal. And this is where constitution, an understanding of constitution comes into it. The constitution is the inherited mineral and nutritional wealth you receive from your parents. Now, most children are arriving into this world at a disadvantage. They're already malnourished and are bringing in what homeopaths will call miasmatic obstacles. So I use nutrition, I use herbs, and I use flower essences with my patients, because I find that I can no longer prescribe the way homeopaths prescribed in the 19th century. I have to support my patients to be able to use the information that I'm giving them to heal themselves. So if the patient has a toxic, layer of drugs, me wanting to cure their grief, which started their symptoms in the first place, i.e., somebody died, they got eczema, they took steroids, that got suppressed, they got asthma, they took more steroids, they've now got type 2 diabetes, etc., etc. I know the cause of all of this started with the grief 20 years ago. Everything else they've got has been added. Can I cure that grief right now? No, I can't. So what I do is I start working with the patient in reverse order. I know where I'm going. I want to get to the grief. And so I need other tools. And those other tools come from nutrition, flower essences, herbs, for me to take the patient back to the journey as to why they got that grief straight away. If I give one of the big grief remedies, because I know that needs curing and they're doing the symptoms, what can happen with the patient is the body will say, do you know what, thank you very much, I can't get to the grief, this is what you need to sort out, and there's an aggravation. All their symptoms feel like they're getting worse. And that's very different from, a return of old symptoms. It's the body's communication. You're asking it to do something it can't. So even if you're a nutritionist, you can actually add homeopathy, because you can give a lot of remedies back as, supplements, cell salts, supplements like vitamin C in a 3x or a 5x, to support the body to begin to absorb these nutrients back into it, especially if the digestive system is inflamed. So there are different ways that you can use your homeopathy, and that's why we're called the Practical College, because we teach you how to use homeopathy in multiple ways to suit the needs of the patient. And it's very easy for alternative and complementary practitioners to actually add that to what they're already doing. So we do have a lot of doctors and pharmacists and nurses, as well as osteopaths, nutritionists, psychotherapists who do our training, because it's very easy to add the homeopathy, and one, you do no harm. If it's not right, if it's not right, then nothing will happen. You're prescribing in the wrong place. So it is one of the safest medicines. It's absolutely fascinating when you see, when you use it. The other thing is, it is amazing for detoxing, clearing out heavy metals, without somebody's phone. It'll go off in a minute. I'm sorry, you're going to have to edit that.
Okay, let's wait for it to finish.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Oh yes, I was talking about detoxing and adding homeopathy to what people are doing. There's a big section on homeopathy around trauma. There are remedies that help people in a state of trauma to come out of that trauma, to integrate it, to actually feel at ease, with themselves. And with us, we go back to the trauma, and that trauma can be a birth trauma, it can be being in an accident, observing something traumatic. So it is a very safe system of medicine.
Really interesting. Now I've got one final question for you. As a therapist and a teacher with many, many years of experience under your belt, what do you think in particular is the key to healing?
The key to healing
in what you do
is resources. For me, the patient is the healer. I'm the facilitator. All I do is facilitate that process, and they have to have the resources to do that. If they don't have the resources, then my job is to find a way for patients to regain those resources. And this is why I see the remedies as a tool. I see nutrition as a tool. I see body work as one of the tools. Fundamentally, it's the patient. I'm originally from Ghana. So one of the things that I've never understood about Western thinking is the way in which they put everything in boxes, and that we learn these different systems of medicine in different boxes. Really and truly, the real healer is the patient. And as a practitioner, having the right tools to facilitate healing is really important. So this doesn't matter whether you're an osteopath. As an osteopath, why is your patient having, problems with their back and their joints? Fundamentally, you've got to go back and look at the cause and see what it is they're putting in their mouth, how toxic they are, if they're absorbing the right minerals and nutrients for healthy muscle and a skeletal system. So I think that whatever you choose to specialize in, whether it's osteopathy or even allopathic medicine, these are just tools. You need to listen to the patient and support the patient to actually find the right way of healing. And I've had patients when I just think to myself, do you know what? You need to see an acupuncturist. You need to start with acupuncture first. As far as nutrition and herbs, I can do that myself. But for body work, I know with certain patients like newborn babies who've had very traumatic births, that I can give trauma remedies for birth, but those trauma remedies will hold once they've had craniosacral therapy. So I'm very much into integrated health, because I think that's just common sense. All these boxes make no sense to me.
Yeah, and fitting homeopathy just makes so much sense to
Yeah.
fit into everything else. Well, Ellen, thank you so much for taking the
It's
time
a
to
pleasure.
speak to me today. I've learned, you've certainly opened my eyes to homeopathy, and I'm sure the people out there who are listening in on this and who are going to come to the convention are really going to have their eyes open into what homeopathy actually is, especially for those who don't really know much about it. And for those of you who are coming to the convention, thank you for taking the time to watch this interview. And hopefully you're going to choose to come and watch Ellen Kramer speak at the Integrative Health Convention. Remember to get your tickets early. We've got limited number of spaces. If you go to the website, click on the links below. We're at the Integrative Health Convention on the 13th and the 14th of October 2018. You can use the discount code below, podcast10, which will give you a 10% discount on the ticket price as a gift from us to you for sharing your time with us. We hope to see you in October in London, and our speakers will be sharing so much with you.
Thank you very much.
See you there.